Conquest of the Longbow, The Legend of Robin Hood was not only my first PC game, it was the first game I ever played with my dad. My dad was a huge techie and got an IBM desktop pretty early. It had 100 megabytes of storage, the unbelievable power of a 486, and 2 entire megabytes of memory. Now I was still pretty young at the time, so of course my imagination was full tilt for games I had just briefly seen in stores. Ultimas, Wizardries, and an entire treasure hoard of gold boxes all stamped with that sleek looking SSI logo. But looking back, I think my parents just wanted me to learn about computers, something I should have probably thanked them for. But at the time, I just wanted to go over to a friend's house and pretty much play video games. So imagine my surprise when my dad came home with a brand new PC game and he wanted to play it with me. So yeah, I'm going to have some trouble staying objective, but I promise to try really hard to stay reasonable in this video. Now with that said, Conquest of the Longbow is not only the best Robin Hood game ever made, it might be Sierra's best adventure game because it is the least Sierra game I have ever played. Sierra Online released Longbow in 1991 to pretty solid reception. It had favorable reviews and sold around 160,000 copies in the first few months. Now Sierra was no stranger to success. They had King's Quest, Space Quest, Leisure Suit Larry. Sierra was essentially the leader in adventure games, including the massive and frustrating bullshit that comes with them. Things like pixel hunting for a literal needle in a haystack, or shaving a cat and sticking the hair to your face with maple syrup so you can have a fake mustache. This was an era when adventure games meant endless deaths, missed items, obscure puzzles, and it was all just wrapped in parody. Longbow is mostly immune to this, and a huge reason for that is Christy Marx. Marx wasn't coming into games as a puzzle designer first, she was a storyteller. Before Sierra, she had worked across comics and animation. She had credits on Conan, Red Sonja, Jim, and even G.I. Joe. Her first game was Conquest of Camelot, and by the time she reached Longbow, she seemed to understand one essential truth. Players are agents of chaos. You can write the cleanest sequence imaginable, and someone will walk backwards into a room and somehow skip half the plot. With Longbow, she had a much better understanding of how to let players approach events in different ways while still holding together a larger story. Marx also did a ridiculous amount of research. She studied Robin Hood ballads, other historical outlaws, maps, Nottingham Castle, including all those tunnels beneath it, and even the trip to Jerusalem pub. I mean, look at the manual. There's an actual bibliography of reference material. The lady did her research. King Richard needs ransom. The sheriff and the abbot are corrupt, and Robin must raise money while protecting the people. Longbow opens with this, via Alan Adale, our own personal troubadour, singing the story into existence. And this is an important choice. Robin Hood has existed for hundreds of years, basically because people keep retelling him, through ballads, poems, books, plays, movies, and now a computer game. Longbow uses Sierra's 1990s point-and-click adventure engine, and yeah, that's a real thing, it even has its own manual. However, it's built more like an interactive Robin Hood storybook than a puzzle game. You can still explore locations, meet new characters, and solve riddles, while occasionally surviving an arcade sequence, but almost everything is built around moving Robin through the actual story. And to help you along in this version of the story is one hell of a box. Now granted, the manual contains what feels like an entire novella explaining why piracy will personally destroy all of civilization. But I can easily look past that. The rest of the manual is filled with reference material that you could imagine Robin himself actually using. And this makes the physical packaging part of the experience. I still have that physical copy, complete in box. I don't know why I kept all of it, or even how it survived such a long time in this good of a condition, but I am thankful that it did. But none of this was meant to just sit on a shelf. It was meant to pull you into a story. So Longbow breaks its stories into chapters, with each chapter representing just another day in the life of Robin Hood. On day 1, we gather our belongings, practice some archery, and learn about the Overlook. There's no origin story, there's not a training sequence. We don't need to spend hours proving that Robin deserves the hood. You already are Robin Hood. Your camp becomes the place where you gather information and speak with your companions. They will provide hints or suggestions on what you can do that day. The Overlook becomes the place where trouble appears. Now together, these establish the rhythm that will carry you through most of the game. On some days, when we visit the Overlook, there is a situation. Like today. A woman is just strolling down Watling Street when suddenly, she's apprehended by one of the sheriff's men. That scoundrel! Clearly, we shall fell this knave and save this damsel and oh my god, she's dead. My bad. One of the best things about Longbow is that you can mess up. You can make the wrong decision, you can fail to save someone, and the story can keep moving. Maybe your personal version of Robin Hood becomes a little worse, but you're not always thrown back to the title screen just because you failed to divine what some asshole you never met intended. Hell, during this playthrough, I completely forgot to grab the horn hanging in Robin's cave. In another Sierra game, that would become a mistake you discover 6 hours later and have to restart the entire game. But here, Little John simply brings it to you. Thank you, Little John. Yeah! This time we save the woman, give her a few coins, and earn some points. After all, Sierra adventure game bylaws require every act of heroism to come with an itemized receipt. But in fairness, those points will eventually matter. The game is quietly recording what kind of Robin Hood we are going to become. This is a good time to point out, there's a lot of dialogue in this game, but it's generally well written. For example, at the end of each day, when we return to camp, we get to talk to the whole crew and go over the events that happened. This gives each chapter almost a natural ending, but they also do something more important. They make Robin feel like he is part of something. Conversations at camp feel like a group of dudes living in the woods, arguing, joking, and just trying to survive. Now until this point, Longbow has been the familiar Robin Hood story, outlaws, soldiers, archery. However, our first night, we meet one of the most important characters in the story, and we add a little of that fantasy folklore magic to the recipe. Robin dreams of a woman, dancing mysteriously in a grove. She vanishes and leaves behind an emerald shaped like half a heart. But when we awake, we're still clutching it in our hands. We have brought this out of our dreams. And what a coincidence. Will just mentioned that someone in Nottingham has asked us to meet them, and we have to bring a lady's slipper. Geez, I wonder who's gonna give us a lady's slipper. Look, there she is. Hey, a slipper. But the dream is important. It is our first sign that there is something mysterious and magical hiding behind this familiar Robin Hood story. And sometimes it will not be subtle. On day 3, we return to the Overlook and learn the game's next major mechanic, disguises. Robin can assume the identity of travelers, and this lets him enter places where the outlaw Robin Hood would immediately be recognized. And this becomes one of Longbow's central ideas. It's less, what strange object do I use here, and more, who does Robin Hood need to be right now? At this point, Longbow has shown us almost everything it will ever ask us to do. It is not building toward an increasingly complicated puzzle box or a rich system of mechanics. Instead, it takes these relatively simple tools and uses them to tell an increasingly elaborate story. The mechanics stay simple, and the fantasy gets richer. By day 4, Longbow starts combining those systems into larger stories. The widow's sons have been taken by the sheriff, Marion needs us to recover a scroll from the fens, and Robin Hood's just trying to get laid. Now you can tackle these objectives in whatever order you want, and this is where Longbow is at its best. It's still running the classic Sierra playbook, what is this and can I touch it? But it removes a lot of the inventory nonsense that normally comes with it. So this Robin Hood is going to save the sons first. At the Overlook, we encounter a monk from the Abbey, so we gently and gracefully convince him to part with his robe, granting us a new disguise. This will let us into the Abbey and is a perfect example of how Longbow's presented. You don't need to explore the entire Abbey. You get a map and some set pieces, like the Abbot's quarters or a hedge maze. We get to spend time here, learn a few things, like how we're going to solve that maze, or that the Abbot is a raging alcoholic. Hey, a laundry room. There are 3 robes. Geez, I wonder what 3 people could use these. At the pub, we face another arcade sequence, 9 Men's Morris. Now as a kid, I needed my dad to beat this every time, until I discovered that turning off the arcade difficulty wins automatically. Victory earns us an amethyst, and the pub reveals the secret passage beneath Nottingham. Suddenly, the ideal way to save the sons is to use everything we have learned. Take the gem, get the abbot drunk, sneak the boys out, right past the sheriff. But you do not have to solve every piece perfectly. You can absolutely abandon subtlety and assault the castle if you get stuck, or if your Robin Hood is more of a man of action. Longbow does reward clever play, but it doesn't treat imperfect play as invalid. So with the sons rescued, we can move on to day 6 and recover Marian's scroll. We return to the Overlook, but this time we see a black-robed monk from the Fens Monastery. And now, it's going to be a duel to the death. Because of course, a Robin Hood story needs a quarterstaff fight. But when we try the controls, there's no real indication of when to strike or when to dodge. I can't even see when you should attack high or low. To this day, I still have no fucking clue what I am doing here, and I refuse to look it up and get good. Why? Because I'm stupid and stubborn. But eventually, with luck and reloads, I can crush his skull, strip him naked, and take his clothes. And that's perfectly fine. He was 100% a bad guy. With our new disguise, we can finally go to the Fens, and it feels completely different from anything that came before it. Sherwood has been warm and colorful and adventurous, but the Fens are cold and haunting. They're quiet. The monastery feels old in a way that is kind of difficult to explain. It is almost like Robin has wandered out of his own legend into something a bit darker. We have misty swamps, a sunken fortress, evil monks doing evil things. Oh, and riddles. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of riddles, but I do like the challenge the guard here provides. So tactically, this is copy protection. The answers come from the gemstone descriptions in the manual. But Longbow doesn't stop the game and ask, what is the third word on page 47, line 10? No, the guard describes a person's situation, and you choose which stones best serve that story. You read the material, stay in character, and solve the problem inside the fiction. And I love this kind of stuff. So while searching for Marian's scroll, we also discover Falk, King Richard's personal jester, is imprisoned in the monastery. And through your standard Robin shenanigans, we recover the scroll, rescue Falk, get handy with some gargoyles, and escape. Mechanically, this is just another disguise and infiltration sequence, like the Abbey. But the setting changes what it feels like. The first was a playful and daring rescue, but this one feels like trespassing somewhere that is mysterious and dangerous. And what has stayed with me the most, even after making the video, is the music in the Fens. There's something about the Roland MT32 sound that feels inseparable from this game. It is synthetic, but it isn't sterile. The music gives this place age and mystery. And because the mechanics are staying simple, the art, the dialogue, the music, they have to make the world worth inhabiting. Longbow has mostly worked within the familiar Robin Hood legend. But Marian gave us a scroll containing a Druidic hand code, which allows us to communicate with the natural world. We can literally talk to trees. Her druid background and the mysterious connection to Robin do lay the foundation for talking trees, little green men, and water spirits. Longbow is still a medieval adventure, but it also now is blending the story with folklore and fairy tale magic. And that is unusual among modern interpretations of the legend. Most versions give us the outlaw, the sheriff, the archery contest, and robbing the rich. A few versions, like Robin of Sherwood, do lean into the mystical side of the forest, but most do not let Robin negotiate directly with supernatural forces. Not even Disney's version goes that far, and they have talking animals. By days 8 and 9, Longbow has finished establishing its world, its characters, and its rules. Now it starts delivering on the stories we expect to see. So of course we have to attend a Nottingham fair disguised as an unknown bowman and enter an archery tournament. I mean, Robin Hood without an archery contest would feel totally incomplete. But moments like these do matter because they let you fulfill the fantasy. They don't necessarily always have to introduce a new system. But man, I hope you spent time practicing your bow skills in the glade. We also get to swindle the sheriff by posing as a jeweler and promising him impossible wealth. And this is another side of the Robin Hood fantasy. He is not only an outlaw with a bow, he is also a medieval scam artist who survives by understanding how exactly greedy his enemies are. Now the structure to Longbow is starting to slow down, but the game keeps the loop entertaining by changing the fantasy that's attached to it. I think Longbow understands that playing Robin Hood means more than completing objectives. Sometimes you just need to feel like you're becoming the legend, even if it's just a few minutes. By day 10, the playful outlaw adventures are pretty much over. Marion has been captured by the abbot and is going to be burned as a witch, and the game is really racing towards its climax. But we already know Nottingham. We know about the secret entrance. We know how to walk the hedge maze. So instead of handing us a pile of arbitrary objects, we can use the knowledge we gained earlier. So this should be a piece of— oh shit, I'm dead. Maybe I should see what's in that box. Now, despite the occasional instant death and the completely normal ring of magical fire protection we've been carrying in a box this entire time, the rescue does work because it makes the world feel connected. It's the payoff we have been waiting for. But the next day, when the Baron arrives with the ransom, instead of carrying out another infiltration or solving a larger problem ourselves, we only get to choose a plan from the merry men and watch the result. Some plans will work, some plans will fail. Some plans involve boars, which I thought sounded awesome when I was a kid. But overall, this is less play as Robin Hood and more select the version of the scene you'd like to watch. After the Baron, we're pretty much shuffled right to the next day so we can meet the Queen's man and hand off the ransom. But he doesn't know the secret hand code, and he's kind of a dick, and I don't have a lot of items left. And that is perfectly fine. He was 100% a bad guy. Thank God the real Queen's man is trapped at the monastery. Now this sounds like a setup for the game's final major challenge. We've spent several days learning about disguises, secret signs, riddles, forest paths. This is where everything comes together. One final assault and one final rescue. Robin Hood using every trick we have learned. Oh, so we're just gonna climb this vine, dodge some rocks, and call it a day. The final days do not run out of story. The dialogue is still strong, and the stakes are rising. It is just that our participation is starting to disappear. Earlier, Longbow gave us these situations to explore. We made decisions, and we carried out plans ourselves. Now it feels like a concert hitting the main event, only for someone to turn off the lights and rush everyone towards the exit. For most of the game, the writing, the atmosphere, the roleplay are enough to carry the simplicity. But in the final days, when the story demands a peak, simplicity starts to feel a little bit more like absence. So Robin and Marion now get to spend the winter together, and for once, everything seems peaceful. Then the sheriff's men finally achieve minimal competence. Everyone is captured. Robin is nearly hanged, but King Richard arrives just in time to demand a trial. And this is where Longbow reveals what it's been keeping track of. The trial is not a single ending. It replays your Robin Hood. The people you helped can speak for you. The people you failed may not be there. Your successes, your failures, they will become the evidence. The sheriff and his allies will try to tear Robin and his friends down. Jesus Christ, man, that is horrible. And this is exactly what an ending should do. It shouldn't just say the adventure is over. It should tell us that the woman on Watling Street mattered. The widow's sons mattered. Marion mattered. The ransom mattered. And yeah, the points mattered. The trial makes something clear. Longbow was never really asking whether you found every item or solved every puzzle. It was asking, what kind of Robin Hood were you? What if your Robin Hood was just having a bad few days? What if you just suck? What if your story was more like, the woman dies, the poacher dies, the monk dies, your men die, repeatedly. The jeweler and the beggar, they survive, but they're not happy about it. But hey, you save Falk, but you can't save Marion, and you deliver less than 1,000 marks of ransom. So what is your well-deserved reward? And that is Conquests of the Longbow, The Legend of Robin Hood. I think video games are uniquely suited to present folklore because they let us participate in stories instead of just watching them. If you like Robin Hood, adventure games, or storytelling, this might be something you fall in love with. It's not filled with constant action, but it is rarely interested in punishing you simply for making an imperfect decision. But if you're anything like me, it can stay with you the music, the art, even the physical artifacts. Maybe that is why I still have the box, the manuals, and this boot disc with my dad's handwriting on it. My dad helped me become Robin Hood the first time, and decades later this game gives me a way to step back into that story. I love that Longbow is not interested in beating you up with bullshit. It just simply asks a single question. Do you want to be Robin Hood? And yeah, sometimes I still do. But what about you? What kind of Robin Hood do you think you would be? And what weird seer adventures have you been on? Thank you for watching.